All right, today we're going to try something a little different. It's a fascinating thought experiment. We're going to start with just one simple idea and see where pure logic takes us, what kind of reality it builds right before our eyes. So let's jump in. So, here's the question at the heart of it all. What if the source of everything, the ultimate reality, wasn't some cold, impersonal force like gravity or energy, but a virtue? What if, at the very bottom of it all, the Creator is charity? We're going to throw out every other assumption and just see what kind of universe we can build from that one single idea.
So, first things first, let's lay down the one and only rule for this whole exercise. Here it is. For our purposes, charity is the uncreated source of everything. It's not a being that has charity, it's a being that is charity. Its fundamental, eternal nature is just to be patient and to be kind. That's it. That's our starting point, our one solid fact. Everything else has to flow logically from this and this alone.
Okay, we've got our premise locked in. Now let's start pulling on that logical thread and see what unravels. If the Creator is charity, what else has to be true about it?
Well, right away we hit our first huge deduction. Patience and kindness, they require a relationship, don't they? I mean, you need someone to be patient with. You need someone to be kind to. You can't be patient in an empty room. So if charity has always been the Creator's nature from eternity, then that relationship has to exist inside the Creator itself. It can't be just a single lonely being.
And that leads us to the next puzzle piece. If the Creator has to be relational to even be itself, what's the absolute minimum number of distinct persons needed for that charity to be totally perfect and self-sufficient without needing anything else?
Let's think it through. One person fails, like we just said. No other to love. Okay, what about two? Well, that's way better. You've got a giver of charity and a receiver. But is that really complete? For the charity to be perfect, shouldn't the love being shared be just as real, just as eternal as the giver and receiver? And that points to a third person, not just an act, but the living bond of love that flows between the first two. So you end up with the one who loves, the one who is loved, and the love itself. It seems like 3 is the logical minimum for a perfect, self-contained charity.
This simple phrase just captures it perfectly, doesn't it? The lover, the beloved, and the love between them. It paints this picture of a complete, dynamic, and perfectly loving reality, which is exactly what our initial premise demands.
But let's dig into that bond for a second. Does that love only come from the lover, or does it come from both the lover and the beloved? Logically, if you want a relationship that is perfectly mutual and equal, that bond of love has to come from both. If it only comes from the first, then the second person is just sort of a passive recipient. But if the love flows from both, then they are truly co-equal partners.
All right, so this brings us to the next big question. If this Creator is already perfect, totally complete and happy within itself, why would it bother creating anything else at all?
And the answer, sticking to our one rule, is that creation isn't an act of need. It's an act of pure generosity. The very nature of charity is to give itself away. Think of it like a cup that's infinitely full. It wouldn't just sit there. It would naturally and logically overflow, sharing its goodness outward.
So where do we fit into this picture? Logically, the purpose of people would be to get invited into this cosmic dance of love, to receive that charity, to reflect it back to the Creator and to each other, and, this is key, to freely choose to participate. This requires what you might call a loving yes, a free choice to align ourselves with the very nature of reality, which is self-giving love.
Okay, let's keep following this logical path. If our whole purpose is to freely join in this relationship of charity, what would the ideal response from one of us actually look like?
This is a really important question. With free will in the mix, is it even logically possible for at least one created person to get it perfectly right? To always, without a single failure, choose to align themselves with charity from the absolute beginning of their existence? And you know what? The logic says yes. If the Creator is all-powerful charity, and the whole point of creation is to reflect that charity, then it's not just possible, it seems pretty probable that a perfect mirror of that charity could exist within creation. This person would be the ideal bridge between the Creator and everyone else.
Now, what about the Creator itself? To make the relationship even deeper, it would make sense for the Creator to enter its own creation. But how would it do it? If it showed up in some massive, obvious, undeniable way, well, that kind of forces everyone to believe, right? It takes away free will. But a hidden entrance, that's much more consistent with charity, because it allows for a genuine response of freely chosen love and trust.
And that hidden entrance leads to our final logical deduction. If the Creator shows up, but in a way that isn't obvious to everyone for all time, then some kind of community, let's call it a church, becomes logically necessary. You'd meet a group to remember what happened, to pass on the teachings, and to be the living, breathing body that carries on this relationship with charity through history.
Okay. Let's take a breath. We've just built an entire blueprint for reality from a single premise. We've got a tripersonal creator, creation as an act of love, a perfect human response, a hidden divine entrance, and a necessary community. So now for the million-dollar question. Does this incredibly detailed profile we just built match anything from actual human history?
And this is where things get really interesting. Let's just look at the mapping. Our logical deduction of a tripersonal unity, that lines up perfectly with the Christian doctrine of the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Our conclusion that the bond of love must come from both the lover and the beloved, that's the whole point of a deep theological concept called the filioque clause in Western Christianity. The logical possibility of a perfect human who says yes from the very start, that sounds an awful lot like the Catholic doctrine of the Immaculate Conception of Mary. The Creator entering creation in a hidden way, that's the incarnation of Jesus Christ. And the necessary community to preserve that truth, that's the church. The one-to-one correspondence is, well, it's pretty staggering.
So, what do we make of all this? We followed a path of pure reason, and it seems to have dropped us off at a very specific address in human history.
To just quickly recap, we started with a single, simple idea: the Creator is charity. And without using any pre-existing theology, we logically built this incredibly detailed structure for how reality works, from the nature of God all the way down to the purpose of you and me.
And what's so wild is that this blueprint we made doesn't just look kind of like some generic religion. It aligns with jaw-dropping precision to the specific, interconnected core beliefs of one particular historical tradition, the Roman Catholic Church.
And that leaves us with one final, massive question to think about. Is this incredible alignment just a fluke, a historical coincidence? Or could it be that we're seeing the echo of a deep, profound logic that's actually woven into the fabric of reality itself? A logic that begins and ends with charity.